Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Shop Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 37. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com, and I'm joined by Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Oh.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or UTC plus 10, or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your comments and questions towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves. The idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. So a quick announcement to start. Joey's, again, not on the show tonight. We're going to get into that a little bit more in a sec. He's still taking some time off with his daughter, which is fantastic. And we'll elaborate on that in a second.
Family duties.
What was that?
Family duties.
So the biggest announcement, though, for today, and we've been talking about this in the background for quite a while, is we're going to be bringing the podcast to an end for a while. So to bring everyone up to speed, we've always had the idea of making this podcast a season or a seasonable thing. And our original goal was to go to 52 episodes, call it a year, bring it to an end, take a break.
Season 2.
Yeah, and then we move on to season 2 and, continue. One of the reasons we wanted to take a break originally was so that we could just, I guess, make sure that we don't get stale in our content. Because, we talk every week and, there are times when we feel like we're running out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. And, we just need to kind of evaluate what we're doing right and what we can improve on, and then have time to actually implement the changes to do so.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we're doing it every week, it's not really something that we can easily implement overnight. So we do need a bit of time to actually do it.
And we've got some really cool ideas, and we really want to improve on the quality, on the production, on the audio quality, all of that. So we want to just take a little break and move forward. The reason why we've had to bring this break forward a little bit and make it a bit earlier is we've all just hit these, I'd say, roadblocks in our lives. I've obviously just recently had a child. Joey's just had his second, which is why he's not able to make it at the moment. It's really difficult timing for him, his time of the day over in New Zealand. And John's, obviously, you might have heard over the last couple of weeks, from a business perspective, things have been a bit tight, and he's needing to focus on that. So this just seems like the best time to do it.
Yeah.
And
we still love you. We're just not going to be here for a few weeks to a couple of months, right? That's the kind of plan at this stage.
Yeah, probably a couple months. I reckon that'll be good. Hopefully by that stage we would have dealt with all of our demons and sorted out where we want to go with this. And then we'll be back, and there should be new stuff. So it will just revitalize the whole series. So we're going to do a show this week. We're going to have a break next week. Unfortunately, I've got work commitments, which is just another thing that's adding to this. So next week we'll give it a miss, and then the week after that will be the final show for the season. We'll bring it to an end, and then we all get to take a break on Tuesdays for a couple months.
Who would have known putting a podcast on took time? Jeez.
And that's what's so crazy about this is I remember listening to podcasts just thinking, what a cool thing, just to once a week, just some lads get together and we have a bit of a chat. But there's so much that goes on behind the scene.
Yeah. And if we're going to improve it, there's going to be even more. So time to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So then,
yes.
What have you been working on, John?
I have been full on at the wood show this week. So last week after the podcast, I had the day off, and then I was straight into the wood show. So I was the truck driver for the setup couple of days. So I drove the truck, which was like, I don't know how many pallets. It must have been 35 pallets going into the show and same amount coming out. So it was a fair bit of gear that we lugged over to to the actual showgrounds, and then it was a couple of days of setup, and then 3 full days of doing sharpening demonstrations, which has just totally wrecked my throat. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a quiet recluse in my daily life. I don't really talk. I don't do much. And when I was actually doing 8-hour days where it was constant talking, it was hard. Like that took it out of me. Not physically, but just like I'd come home at the end of that show with this aching throat and just having to like eat an orange just to get a little bit of relief. But no, it was a really good show.
And I guess you've got to constantly have your social energy up, which is something you are not necessarily you aren't, but that takes a lot out of you. And some people are just naturally social people, and some people aren't. I remember this. Joey and I had this conversation after the meetup we did in Brisbane. How because you are there and there's an expectation for you to be social, you can't just go sit in the corner because you know not what you're there for. So there's an expectation. So you've got to constantly be at 110%. And we were there for what, 2-3 hours?
Yeah, about that.
And Joey and I would say we were buggered afterwards.
Oh yeah, it is hard work. Like I wouldn't say it's harder work than any other day. It's just different kind of work. And the fact that I'm there representing this company and there's an expectation on us to engage with the customers and let them know what the tools are all about and how to use them and the benefits and the disadvantage of one method over the other. And, just having to really, I wouldn't say I was baby talking people, but it felt like I had to really assume they knew nothing. And a lot of the guys that come to the show are proper pensioners. Like, you guys got a day pass out of your retirement home today sort of crowd that this is new school to them. They've never seen a compact Waterstone that can get a mirror finish in 5 minutes. And when they come up and they say, oh, it's easier to do it this way, you got to actually say, well, maybe, but this is the advantage and this is why you want to do it. And if you don't do that, then the boss around the corner says, try harder. And, it was not cool. But it was a really fun show for us, and I'm sure we'll get into it further. But that I was there for TimberCon, for those that don't know, but Jesse, who does the TimberCon series on their channel, he was actually flown over from Melbourne and he was demoing the CNC machines.
Cool.
And just meeting up with him was really cool because he, like me, started with his own furniture making business, and then he eventually turned, said, no, it's too hard, I'll just throw it in and go do a normal job. And that's why he's with TimberCon now. But it was kind of cool having someone that knew the same struggles that I did at the same show, doing the same sort of job, and to just kind of spitball ideas back from him. He was awesome, dude. His energy on the videos that you pick up is exactly who he is. It's not like some of the people you meet where it's, you are not what I was expecting from your videos, which is probably what people think when they meet me. But to be honest, but really, really cool show. But as far as making, not anything. So I saw a pretty cool Instagram photo of a coffee table you're working on, Robin.
Yeah. So
I really like that design. It was not what I envisioned, but yeah.
I just saw your comment before we went live. And I'm really stoked to hear that. So for those that don't know, I'm building what's called a split level coffee table for clients. I've seen a few of these builds online. Like if you Google split level coffee table, you'll see them. I don't particularly like this design. I just don't think it's particularly aesthetically pleasing is the word. And for all it's worth, functionally, I don't really think it's all that either. But people are doing it. So I got this job to make this coffee table, and I drew it up in SketchUp, gave it to the client, and they said, that's great. And I could almost feel myself handing it over saying, all right, well, that's it. And they went, oh, that's great. We love that. Let's go with that. And I thought, okay, well, that's it. Start working on it. And right now I'm busy gluing up the leg assembly. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it there behind me in the clamps. Earlier this week, I put out a picture on Instagram where it was just dry fitted together mostly. And that's the one that Jordan's talking about. So you think you don't look at that and think, well, what's the point?
No, I don't look at it and think what's the point. It's definitely not a design that I would, consider putting in my house, because it's just, to me, it's not my style. But when I saw it, it was not what I envisioned, and it's a lot better than what I envisioned. And proportionately, I think it's spot on. Like, I don't think the top doesn't look too thin and the base doesn't look too tall, or it doesn't look too wide.
Yeah.
And it is a piece that I wouldn't be rolling my eyes at having designed that and having to make it for a customer. I would see it's not my style, but I still like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really impressed by it. And that split level, I really like that you have the full length apron between both legs and then have the step up. And I think that's what it is that I like so much about your design, is that it's a split top with this distinctive kind of change, which is, it's not just a stair tread. It's, here's the base and then there's a next level on top.
Yeah.
Like, so to me, it's kind of built upon.
It's interesting that you say that, because that was brought about by limitation, where the problem was, I think a more traditional split level table, that rail wouldn't run the full length.
No, exactly.
But the problem with that then is you'd almost create this pivot point if you ran it just under the bottom section, and then another one at the top section, where the top and the bottom meet on those little legs. You'd essentially create a pivot point.
Oh, total weak spot, yeah.
Total weak spot. And I didn't know how to get around this. All the pictures that I've seen, a lot of them are done with different materials. So, steel, acrylic, acrylic, that type of thing. Yeah. I haven't seen it done very much with wood. So I wasn't sure how to get around it. So I just went back to the client and I said, well, it's not, this might not be what you particularly had in mind, but what do you think about doing this?
Yeah.
And they thought it was rad. So we went with it.
I like it. To me, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Japanese styling, of the modern Japanese furniture makers styling. So if you look at Blank is the one that comes to mind. Totally different scale, but that sort of styling.
Okay,
and I think it's really neat. It's modern, but not like contemporary modern, if that makes sense. But no, I'd be stoked with that.
Cool. Yeah, well, it's in the clamps at the moment. I started work on the top and the second top today.
How are you joining the aprons into the legs? Is that mortise and tenon or dowel or?
So it's not. What's the opposite of a floating tenon?
Traditional mortise and tenon.
Is that what it's called? I never remember the name.
So a floating mortise and tenon is where you have two mortises and then a piece of wood between the two.
Yeah. So it's not that.
A mortise and tenon is when the tenon is a part of one component.
Okay. Yeah. So it's so then it's mortise and tenon. It's only a 15 mil tenon, so it's pretty short. But you reckon that's okay?
Not for that sort of diameter leg. I mean, what are they? They 35, 40 mil?
40 by 30, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty standard.
But they are super tight. Like, it is, that table is the best joinery I've ever done in my life. I just, when you do like a job like that, and you finish it, and you just do a little fist pump because you're like, I got that 100%.
Yeah. Well, if you keep doing it, you'll have to go full Japanese styling and start hammering the face of your tenons to get them to fit in.
I never thought of that. That's a really good idea, actually, because I think there's a fair bit of crushing going on with that to get them in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously not as good as that. So that's that, because I did a lot of hand sanding the tenons to get them to really fit nicely. Right. It probably would have worked really well if I just pounded it with a hammer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty old school technique, but quite traditional.
But yeah, so that's in clamps. The next thing is going to be how I join those little feet onto the top and bottom piece. We won't go into too much detail this week because a lot of people won't know what I'm talking about, and I still haven't entirely fleshed out the idea, but hopefully by the next podcast, it will all be done. The next big thing that I've got to think about is how I'm going to finish it.
Yes.
I really want to do a polyurethane just because I know how that works, so I can do that well.
What
But it's
about
gonna
a conversion, or not conversion oil, but like a hard burnishing oil or something more close to the wood?
right. So I don't want to do poly because it's going to yellow it, and it's going to look like every single other piece of 90s furniture that you see, which has gone that golden color.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm
I'd,
thinking of water.
I would say, if it was me anyway, I would say do like a tung oil, so a hard burnishing oil, which is a tung oil base, so still nice and durable, but you can still feel the wood. And that's with a coffee table, that's something that I like, the idea of being able to come up to it and it's inviting you to rub your hands over it. Like
I like that idea.
To me, that's when you know you've done a really nice finish, is when you want to touch something.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So what I've done is I've started putting together samples for the clients, and on one I've got one section I've got the wipe on poly, and then I've also got this, which is an oil. Yeah. It's in the bench of oil, incorporates natural tung oil, So maybe this is what you're talking about, and maybe I should give that a go. I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective of the touching it.
Yeah, I mean that timber oil, that's a very thin one. If it's the one I've used anyway, it looks like the same can. So you might have to apply quite a lot of coats. But yeah, if it's a tung oil, it'll be beautiful.
The only thing I'm concerned about though is how I'm gonna. Oh, mind you, that shouldn't be too bad. You wouldn't need as I've sanded all the legs up to 240. That should be enough for it, right? You don't need to go much higher than that.
Yeah, I mean on the top you would probably go a bit higher, just because that's the surface. But on the legs it would be fine. And with that stuff, like if you get the wet and dry sandpaper, you can actually buff it in using that sandpaper. So as you apply it,
some 600.
Yeah, because it's quite wet. It's a very loose oil. You can actually use the sandpaper to apply it as you're going.
Don't you just end up then with the sand, the sawdust particles in the finish, and then that just...
No, not really, because you wipe it off. Like you don't let it soak. You wipe it off once you're done.
Oh, so you're sanding it in?
Yeah, you sand it wet, and then wipe it off. So any excess.
I might give that a go, actually.
Yeah.
Still, though, that's my concern is it's going to end up yellow.
All oils will darken timber to some degree. Tung oil is quite a pale oil, though, so it might. You might be surprised at how light it will remain.
Yeah, well, this is not, it's not pine, so you're not going to end up with that golden pine orange look. But the test piece that I've done, it's made it pretty yellow from this lovely blonde, gray blonde color.
Yeah.
It's yellowy orange.
Well, maybe if color is a thing, water-based is the next thing.
Yeah. So I'm putting together some samples for the client. They'll decide what they want. All right. Well, that's pretty much me. The topic for this week that I thought we could talk about is just go into some of the details for the Perth show, and we'll take it from there. I'm really interested just to hear how this went, especially considering we did Mulaney earlier this year. How did it compare?
Yeah, I mean, this year is, as like most people would be aware anyway, is Carbotech has pulled out of all shows nationally. So this year there was one big exhibitor not present, and it was quite obvious at the show. For the people that have been to the wood show every year, everyone is basically the same with one or two different stalls in there. So it wasn't exactly a new show by any means, but it was still a really good show. So as far as the layout is, you kind of go into this whatever they're called, the showgrounds, big building. You pay to get in, and then you walk around and you look at all the exhibits. So pretty standard.
Is it a lot sharper and more corporate than Mulaney was, or is it still very down to earth like that?
Compared to Mulaney, it is, but it's still very down to earth if you compare it to something like AWST. So definitely targeted towards the hobbyist crowd, and the main demographic you get through the doors there are retirees and pensioners. You could basically, it was basically a sea of grey hair every year you go there. And I think that comes down to a lot of their marketing. Like they're relying on radio ads, whereas more modern marketing techniques are obviously relying on social media. But no, it was a really cool show to be. So we had, unfortunately, I didn't get to walk around a huge amount because I was demoing, and I'm of the mentality of I'm there to do a job. I'm getting paid to do this job. If I'm not doing that, then what's the point of me being there? So I know a lot of the other guys that were volunteering on the stand, took it as an excuse to go see the show and half-heartedly sell the products. But for me, it was like, no, I'm going to be here demoing and doing it. And I was the only one that had a product that was flying off the shelf. Like I sold out every day, and I even started selling back orders for products that were due in 3 weeks.
So what were you actually... So were you there to sell or to demonstrate? And what was the product?
So I was there to just demo and then help with getting sales. So I was demoing the whetstone grinder that Sherwood make. So it's a fairly new whetstone grinder, like the Tormek.
Okay, that's not.
However, it's like quarter of the price. It's a $300 unit, and its quality is way up there. So everyone that has seen my videos know I use the Triton whetstone, and that's roughly $600 at least on this side of the world. So this is still half the price of that, and I honestly can say it's just as good. Like the jigs and fixtures that come with it are obviously of a lesser quality, but it does the same job, and the finish is through like phenomenal compared to, if I compared that with the Tormek, which is $1,000, and compared it to the Triton, which is $600, the end product is exactly the same. So,
but the stone, surely that all boils down to the stone.
That's right, and the stone is what costs the money. So,
is it okay? So the stone's not like sandpaper. You don't just swap it out every now and then.
No, exactly. Like the stone on a Tormek is almost $400 to just replace it, and the stones on this, obviously, that's more than the entire cost of the unit, and that's what kind of blew me away, and that's what made it so easy for me to actually sell it, is because I believed that this you can't get better for the money.
Yeah, so anyone going looking for a whetstone on the day,
there
was no other option.
Yeah, I mean, other than spending something 4 times the amount. So I managed to dig out every crappy chisel I could find and bring it down to the show, and bought some kitchen knives and all of that. And I managed to sharpen every chisel and every kitchen knife and every pair of scissors I could find. So that was great. It was
basically like a workshop task.
Yeah, getting paid to sharpen my tools. So that was kind of cool. So like I had quite a few people come up and say, "Hey, aren't you Jordan?" I was like, "Yes." How are you?
Cool.
Shake your hands, and obviously Martin. So M Potts on our Discord channel came up and said g'day, and we had a really good chat. And a few people I've bumped into throughout the years came up, and we had more chats, and it was really cool. And quite a few people actually said, "I listen to the Shop Stool podcast and love what you're doing," and blah blah blah. So awesome. It was kind of I would say it was almost a humbling sort of thing to have people come up, even though it's been such a long time since I put content out, still coming up to say hi and that I recognize you and all that. So
I'm glad to hear that, because I was worried, when we mentioned it last week, that you were going to get a lot of people being, "Hey, Jordan, I watched your channel," but I didn't think there would be people on the podcast as well.
No, I wasn't expecting a huge number of podcasts, other than the few that are in the Discord channel. So, Martin and all of that. But yeah, no, it was really, really neat. And even those that I didn't expect to listen to the Shop Stool podcast, like old fan, like early days of my channel, came up and said hello. And I remember meeting him years ago. And then just out of the blue, said, "Yeah, I love what you're doing on the Shop Stool podcast. Glad that you're still getting some regular content out there." And it was quite a neat thing. And what I will say is that has definitely inspired me to get back into just making videos. So even if I haven't got a build going on, like, I'm a bit quiet right now, doesn't matter. Just go and make something, do something kind of cool. And the whole experience had kind of left me with this idea that I didn't have before, which is that us as YouTube personalities are actually perfectly suited for that kind of work of being a brand representative.
What, as in like the Shop Store podcast or TimberCon, etc.?
Well, as in like TimberCon or etc. So like you, myself, Joey, or any YouTuber that has experience basically going into details about what you're doing, why you do it, and the benefit of doing it. That's actually kind of what these bigger companies are looking for when it comes to sending people to these wood shows and representing the brand. And I didn't even think about that until this show. Like the owner of the Perth branch, he said, "Have you done a lot of this sort of stuff?" I'm like, "No, not really." And then I thought about it and saying, "Well, actually, for the last 5 years, it's exactly what I've been doing, just on an online kind of
talking to the most unresponsive crowd in the world, which is the camera lens." Yeah.
So I've had plenty of practice pretending that there's someone that's engaged with me, even if they're not, and I can just power through it. So it was a really, really cool. So I think I'm gonna keep an ear to the ground for brands which I like, and just put some feelers out there and say, look, this is what I am, this is who I do, and if you're looking for someone to represent you at a show and wherever, I'd be happy to come over and do so.
Because I guess then you don't need to worry so much about this YouTube sponsored video debacle.
Exactly. It's on an actual. It's on the more old school scale, but something that a lot of these companies are more familiar with. So it could work well. I doubt anything will come out of it, but it's just something to keep in the back of the mind as a YouTube.
I think it's going to be hard to get the first. Well, maybe that's not entirely correct, but it's going to be hard to get your foot in the door with this, because you look at I've forgotten the TimberCon mate that you were talking about earlier, who does the videos.
Sherwood. Jesse.
Yeah. You look at what Jesse does, right? TimberCon have said, we need someone doing videos. We're going to put someone on. Think of all the other brands, they need to get someone doing the same thing. We are the perfect people for that, because they cannot employ anyone with more experience. Well, okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but we have a very good resume in that regard.
Especially for being the brand representative. So yeah, perfect idea for it. And with the contacts that I'm making now, it's more possible. So example, at the wood show, I lent my trolley jack, which I bought from my workshop, to the guys at Laguna Tools because they didn't bring anything with them. And then through that, we got chatting, and then it's like, well, all right, Laguna Tools, I love your machinery. I've used it in TAFE, and we got chatting, and now they're aware of me.
Yeah,
probably nothing will come out of it because he's the rep, and unless he wants to leave, but still,
doesn't matter. That's networking 101.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny, you were talking about you're going to put out videos because that's what we do. Some of you might have seen my last video, which was how I sharpen my chisels.
That was good timing going in to do a sharpening. Who was it? I think it was actually Martin M. Potts asked me, so what do you think about Robin's latest video? And I'm like, it's all right.
So that was I woke up one morning, I'd watched a Stumpy Nubs video about 3 days before. I woke up in the morning and I saw a Crafted Workshop, Johnny Brooks video. And I thought, that's 2 videos in a row on stones. I'm going to make a video about what I did. And it was just a real spur of the moment. I literally filmed and edited out in one day.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not a hugely performing video, but the conversation around it has actually been pretty good. Yeah. And it sort of goes with what you're saying. You don't need to be making a Rubo workbench every single time. Sometimes it's just got to be a very good idea, but sometimes you've just got to throw it at the wall, and whatever sticks. And sometimes, like in my opinion, with the sharpening video, there was a really good conversation around it. So something as simple as that, but I just made a video. I thought, I'm just going to make a video.
Yeah.
And off you go.
And I think it's that thing that, especially for my kind of personality anyway, and I'm pretty sure you're the same, but I'm really into the inner workings of everything. So if I can do a video on discovery of, this is what the method is, this is why I'm doing it, and here's the reasoning behind it, and that's the sort of stuff I find really interesting. And why don't I do that? You don't need to have a finished project at the end of it. as long as it's something that you're passionate about, can engage with, then it's a recipe for a video.
Yeah, point and case, river tables.
Yeah.
People just want to see epoxy being poured. That's what it's all about. So yeah.
But no, it's been fun.
So with the demographics and the demographic and the crowd that was at the show,
yes.
One thing I remember very vividly about Mulaney was it was very much the previous generation. There was very few of our generation and younger. Same thing at Perth.
Mulaney looked like a young person's convention in comparison to Perth. Like Mulaney, it was a lot of seniors, but there was also a lot of families.
I find it so weird.
Like other than the Sunday, the last day before the football came on, there was a derby over here, so everyone left about 2:00.
Oh yeah, and anyone who watches football knows about that game.
Yeah,
all over the news.
But Sunday was
some real thugs over on that end.
Yeah, we're bred pretty bogan over on this side apparently, if you trust the footy teams that we have.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a bit off topic.
Yeah, sorry.
But no, crowd-wise, the Friday, you would be lucky to see one person under the age of 70. Saturday and Sunday, obviously there was more of a mixed crowd with people that have jobs being able to get out. But yeah, I was blown away at how many old people came to this show. And I mean, not like early retirees, but late retirees. It was pretty funny.
Interesting. All right. It's something that you would go to as a ticket holder. You buy a ticket and go to it. I mean, or maybe a better question is there anything that they could have done to really improve the show?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from an organizational thing. There is a lot they can do, and we won't get into that because it's not what interests people. But as someone with events experience, I was actually gobsmacked at how useless they were at getting this thing put together. Right. But as far as the running of, I would like to see them, because this is a mixed show. So on one side of the pavilion is the wood show and the other is the craft show. So one is for the wives and the old ladies that like crochet, and one is for the men in the shed. And I think it's a really good idea to run the two. But the entire show, they have one canteen which is serving just crap, standard like pies and sausage rolls and fried chips. That's all they have serving the entire pavilion. So if you wanted to go there and make a day of it, you're left to spend $25 on a bit of deep fried crap.
And for any celiacs out there.
Yeah, well, I obviously had to bring food in, but they'll sit on these crappy plastic chairs in a corner, which is like they'd been forgotten. And even though right outside the pavilion, they've got this massive alley where they could put food trucks, have chairs, gazebos, maybe some live music. Like Mulaney had the stage in the center of which is the one we performed on, but all throughout the day they had various artists performing live music, and then you'd walk out and there was food. Like there was none of that at this show, and it's a perfect opportunity. I mean, they had a coffee van, but that was it. So it's not a very inviting event to go and make a day of, just because you're either walking around looking at the stalls, which you can do in 20 minutes. In all honesty, there's nothing that intriguing there. There's some cool stuff, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that will take the entire day to walk around. So why not introduce something that makes it a little bit more comfortable? And
so the Adelaide Maker Fair. Yeah. So you've obviously seen Maker Fairs on YouTube. They were very good for that, because the whole maker scene, while it's similar in many regards, it's completely different to woodworking. Everything at the maker scene, from the chairs people were sitting on to the exhibits, everything was trying to be cool.
Yeah.
So you didn't have that, we're gonna go sit in some lawn chairs to have our lunch. Everything made you feel special with everything that you engaged with felt nice. But I guess with woodworking, there's this traditional old man approach to it. So you don't need to do that. And obviously that's there's no disrespect meant by that, but that's just what what it's traditionally been.
Yeah.
So you really want something like that show to, I think about, Duressa did a video where he made a bar while he was at the show.
Yeah.
They need to incorporate like that sort of mentality about, as you say, the food stalls.
That actual, your example of the Duressa thing is something that I came up for with TimberCon, because they were demoing hand tools on one side of the tent. And I just said, why, you got 3 days, you could make something. Why don't you try do like a dovetail box, or maybe make a bench or something, instead of working on a bench with your hand tools and just taking 3 passes with a plane. You should be doing something a little bit more, engaging, to have people really drawn in and get engaged. I mean, yeah, it probably won't convert to many sales, but it will convert to having a better experience at the show.
Yeah, I remember at Mulaney, there were guys making those. Do you remember? It was we got there, it was in the morning, we walked up the road and into that sort of like warehouse. Yeah. And there were guys making chairs.
Yeah, the green woodworkers.
Yeah. Oh, is that what that was? I didn't even pick that up. That was pretty cool. So that's the type of thing that you could be doing with the tools that you're showcasing.
Yeah. And I will admit that we had like in the middle of the actual pavilion, there was a guy doing woodworking workshops for kids and all that. So there was a little bit of that there. It's just the thinking of the stall holders weren't along that line. But and I might be coming across as slightly cynical or negative on the show, and I'll say that if this was my first show, I'd leave there really impressed. But because I've been to the show every year for the last 5 years, nothing's changed with it. Like, I would really like to see a bit more coming through as far as the speakers that come on the stage and they're talking about spindle turning. Well, why don't you have someone also talking about the online community, which is a big part of the woodworking community right now, or talking about, something a little bit more modern about the CNC age, because really, that's what all the school kids are going to be getting taught if they want to go into this handy man, not so much the TER or whatever it's called now, but the ATAR scores. They're the ones that are going to become the CNC machinists of the future.
Yeah.
So why not try and get some more of that involved in the show? And I think that would be probably not like huge crowds around it, but they do have the school groups come through on the Friday, and that's more realistic as to, this is probably more like what you're going to be getting into. Let's talk about the future. But there's not much of that future prospect at the show.
Yeah, it's probably a good time with that in mind, to plug a show that I'm going to be at later this year in October. It's Wood Dust. There's some international speakers there. I'm going to be doing a talk. It's October the 17th. That's the Wednesday through to the Sunday. I'm going to be there on Friday and Saturday. Dirk from Sumo's Projects, he's going to be there. Him and I had a bit of a chat this week. There's a couple of other woodworking Instagram YouTubers that are going to be coming down. This woodworking show, from everything that the organizer has talked about, I can't wait for, because his whole vibe is to bring in that younger crowd and bring in that modern edge to it, to get away from the stigma.
Yeah, I'd love to come down for that one. It sounds like the best wood show there could be in Australia. At least from my perspective, which is I like this online community and the younger approach to everything, not the behemoth way. So the 17th, you say? That's my birthday. Maybe I'll have a holiday off.
Yeah, well, really, the idea is I want to get as many YouTube woodworkers out to it. It's near Canberra, so it's pretty central to everyone.
Queen Anne, right? Is that right? Queen Anne? Is that?
So, oh man, there's another name with a B that it's sort of it's in a couple of places all in the area.
Yeah.
But there's anyway, Canberra's the closest one has been to. I don't know any. I've never been to that part of the world, so I don't know anything. But but yeah, it's near Canberra. So Dirk's literally just jumped on now. Is there a potential meetup for the expo? Absolutely. I think what we might do is try and organize something. I need to contact the organizer for it. It might not necessarily be something official, but on the Friday evening, they have a meetup with everyone, if I'm not mistaken, for the show. So you buy a ticket, you can meet everyone on the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night. So what we'd probably do is just jump in on the Friday night, and we can all go say hello to each other in person for a change. There we go. Bungendore, I think is how you say it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've driven through there. Good place.
Oh, right.
Good place.
Cool. All right. So anything else about Perth Wood Show that you want to? It's WA Wood Show, I should be saying.
WA Wood Show. Well, no. I mean, I just want to say thanks to everyone that did come up and say g'day, because it was quite. It's inspired me to get back out there and making just for the sake of being a maker, not worry about having work on necessarily. So,
cool.
Yeah,
good stuff. So I got a message on the Discord server from our old friend Martin, who was interested in doing us talking about sharpening tools. And I sort of said to him, that it's a topic we've sort of talked about before. It might not be an entire episode, but I did say we'd talk about it. And I guess I didn't realize you were going to be there sharpening. I didn't realize that was your thing. So I guess now it makes even more sense to talk about it. What's your view? So did you watch my video?
I did. Yeah, I watched it.
What's your view on that? Do you think that that's a very Neanderthal, and be honest, because I'm pretty sure it is that a very Neanderthal way of doing it?
Yes, but no. It's I agree with most of your methods. I personally don't like the idea of running any knifed edge on a sanding belt, because if it does catch, that to me just spells disaster of slippage and binding.
But sorry, knives can't they catch on a stone as well? Yeah,
but that's under your power.
What do you mean? How? What? I don't understand. What's the difference?
You mean on a grinding stone?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. On a grinding stone. That's what she said.
Yeah, they can totally.
And to me, the concept of a grinding stone is the scariest thing. When I'm using the belt sander, the belt is running away from the edge, right? When you put it on a grinder, the stone's running into the edge. To me, that just says it's going to explode.
No, I mean, the reasoning for running the stone into the edge is that you're going to work hard on that edge, so you get a longer tool life for one, and you're not going to have as much of a bevel of a burr. Like, you want to push that burr into the tool.
I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just, to me, I can only imagine that stone hooking into the chisel, and that chisel flies out towards you.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but the thing is that if you're doing it freehand, that's a risk, but if you're doing it jigged or on a tool holder, it's pretty damn unlikely of that happening, because it's light pressure for one, and you're also braiding away to match the profile of that wheel. So it's going to ride on the surface of that. Still always a risk, yes. Yeah. And that's why you always want to wear eye protection and not just jam a tool in there, do it slow and controlled. But no, your method, I think the way that you're finishing your method is way up there. So as in you're using your bench to kind of strop it, I definitely would say just get an offcut of MDF and charge it with some compound, because you will make a big difference. But you do need to also think about flattening the back with some sort of method. So whether that be on a diamond stone or something, just so you keep a flat back, that will get you better results.
Was it you that commented on the video about, as soon as they started flattening the back, it was the game changer? Was that your comment?
Or was it
someone else?
I don't think I commented.
It was something along the lines of, someone taught me to flatten the back of the blade, and when I did that, my eyes were open. That's what really made my blade sharp.
Yeah, and that is exactly why I say that, is because if you're not flattening that back, then you're relying on it's machined, but not exactly an accurately machined surface to give you that straight edge. if I like the method of going from the belt sander onto the wet and dry paper and then onto honing with your bench, it seems like a lot of steps to me.
Yeah.
I also would not worry about going onto a 36 grit and then a 120. I'd just only ever go 120 grit because already 120 grit is super aggressive for steel. Like you should be removing a couple of thou of material, not millimeters of material when you're sharpening. And
in the video's case, the 36 was to just the entire edge was stuffed, so it's just to bring it back. Do you think I should still be doing that with a 120?
I would still do that with 120.
Right. Okay.
Like the stones that I use, my wet stone, that's 250 grit, and I start on that. If you're looking at like a white oxide wheel, which is the old school bench grinders, they're 60 grit and 120 grit usually. So yeah, 36 is probably a bit harsh in my opinion. But as far as that question of how sharp is sharp enough, it depends. What are you doing?
Well, there was a video talking about Stumpy Nubs earlier. He put out a follow-up video talking about how the knife and sharpening, we'll call it the sharpening community, is so aggressive.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go back to the 100 years when people were making beautiful fine furniture that we're all in a way trying to emulate, those traditional skills. He was talking about the stones that they would use in America. What was it? Started with an A, and I think it was an Arkansas stone. Anyway, he said the grit of that stone would roughly translate to about 450 grit.
Yeah,
and that's where they'd stop.
Yeah, and like if you look at any old school boy of sharpening, they always have a strop of some description, whether it be their jeans or their hand. They always strop that to remove that burr, but in order to get the burr, you have to have a reliable sharpening technique to get there.
But they don't like it, in my video. I can't remember. I think I might have said this in the video, but I can't remember. At the 600 grit points, I can shave my hairs.
Oh,
the blade's there already. In the video, I went up to 1200, but you probably don't need to.
I always polish off up to 10,000, always. But that's because I'm using a diamond compound on a wheel.
Yeah.
You don't need to by any means. So depending on what you're sharpening. So for a good example is scissors. You're actually relying on a burr to do your cutting. So you want a burr, or if you're using lathe tools, for example, a scraping tool on the lathe, you're wanting a burr because that's what's doing the cutting. But if you're doing something like carving work, you're wanting to be a perfectly razor sharp edge, and any of the little imperfections, those little micro nicks that you can't see, but you can kind of feel as drag when you do shave your head, your arm.
You've missed the wood if you're onto your head.
When you are like shaving the hairs, like that will be a big game changer if you're feeling it. But if it's just chopping a mortise with a hammer, you don't need that much perfection.
Yeah, well, I must say I had that epiphany today. I sharpened up my plane iron today, and it's because I was I'm terrified of like that coffee table. I see guys on a tabletop with their plane. I am so scared of doing that because of tear out.
Oh right? Yeah. You never get not scared of tear out. Don't worry.
Yeah, and I just see these guys just shoop, and I think, whoa, like Anyway, for that reason, I would want my plane to be, 100,000 grit sharp.
Yeah.
But as you say, with your chisels, where you're just smashing it into the wood, if you go up to 10,000 grit and then hit it into the wood, that edge is gone.
Yeah, exactly right. And depending on also your angle, like if you're chopping with the chisel, you want that to be, 30 degrees, even steeper maybe. But if you're doing paring action on end grain, 25 degrees is perfect. So there's so much that goes into how that bevel or the tip is going to behave. And I think I might actually do a sharpening video, being that I've just done 3 days of it at a show, and then there's this topic and you've done it. I might do one and saying that this is the technique that I'm using, and it could be cool to compare. But when I would be interested, because I've never used your method, obviously, and right off the bat, I would say the results would be up there with a flat grind. But if you took one of those chisels that you did sharpen and you ran your fingernail really lightly across the edge, not your finger, but your nail, would you feel, this is an old school way that I was taught to see if it's sharp, if it is constant and smooth across the entire thing, then you're razor sharp. But if you feel any little jaggedy bits, then you're not razor sharp. I'd be interested to see how your method pulls up on that test.
So today with the plane iron, I checked that just because, I don't know, I was trying to see how sharp the blade was against my skin as opposed to, shaving. And I was surprised at how solid that blade was, like how, consistent that blade was. And the reason I was checking that is I got a new router bit not too long ago. I bought a cheap set, years ago, and then I bought one good bit. Yeah. And I remember when I bought that bit, and I felt the edge. I was like, it doesn't even feel sharp. It's just like, to me, it felt like a smooth edge when I ran my finger along. But that's what you're talking about, where it's that perfectly fine edge. Yeah. There's no burrs on it at all.
That's right. And this is an entirely different topic again, but carbide, like router bits are carbide.
This one was carbide, yeah.
Carbide cannot and will not ever be as sharp as high-speed steel, and that's what most of our tools are. And that's because of the brittle nature of carbide. So when it comes to sharpening carbide, if you sharpen that thing to have a razor edge, you're actually, what's the word? You're going to make that tool's life way less because you're going to actually chip it. So when engineers are working with carbide, they're doing specific rake angles and specific grinds to give you the maximum life with optimum results, not necessarily best results. Because best results, you might get 5 cuts out of it, but then that bit's shot. And like you look at sharpening carbide as well, you're not going to sharpen the profile, you're going to lap that flat face and just bring that in to be a little bit skinnier. You're not gonna try and file with bevel angle, you're just gonna flatten that back a little bit.
Yeah. Speaking of carbide, you remember when we did a couple of weeks ago, we did an episode where I talked about why would the knives come in boxes for my thickness, come in boxes of 30 come in boxes of 10. So I end up with 30 knives for my 25 head. I don't remember that conversation.
Yep, I remember.
I went through a nail this week, so now I know why.
Did it shatter or did it chip?
Well, I haven't actually changed the blade, but that nail was cut clean. Yeah. You could have seen yourself in the mirror on that nail. So I can only hope that it was an old nail because it was soft. So what they used in this bed frame, I think it might have been soft, so it went through it. But subsequent boards, I've seen there's now
that groove.
Yeah, it's pretty wide as well. So
you've probably lost that tooth, that entire insert.
You reckon? Yeah.
Yeah. If it's wide, is it like a centimeter wide?
It was probably about 5 centimeters wide. So I'm not quite sure what's going on, unless I've run the board through a couple of times and I've nicked it a couple of times, which is even worse. But
mind you, the segments on your cutter head aren't that close together, so it could just be that you've shattered one tooth, or one insert. It's not like a helical, it's just a segmented, right?
Yeah, segmented, yeah.
So it could be. But I'll definitely have a look though.
Yeah, I need to open it up and have a look inside and see what's going on. But yeah, well, I'd be super keen to see how you do the sharpening, because I'm guessing you don't use the stones.
I still use stones. The
hand stones.
As in water stones and stuff, right?
No, the diamond stones, the ones that you put in the jig and you run it back and forth.
Yeah, I still use wet stones anyway, so the older equivalent of diamond stones in the process, but not rely on them. So I use those for touch-up work more than establishing work, because I like a hollow grind. And, I'll do a video and I'll go into my reasoning and kind of the techniques and why I like the method. It's slower. That's the one thing I will say, is that it is slow, but you get a good edge.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what have you been watching? Anything interesting? If not, I have a very, very cool video to talk about, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to talk about it as well.
I haven't really watched anything this week because I have been getting home from this
Yeah, of course.
for work, and I've just crashed. So other than watching your video before I got to the show, that was it.
So Chris Salamone, Salamone?
Oh yeah, Four Eyes guy, yeah.
Yes, that guy.
Chris Salamone.
He put out a video as if he had listened to our podcast, which I don't think he has, but talking about the river tables. And he perfectly summarized why he doesn't like the idea of the river tables, along the lines of, while they are cool, they're also very creatively limiting, because people just go, river table, got to make river table. And we've seen it all a million times. So there's nothing. He then goes on in the show later, or on the video, to talk about how he sometimes struggles with creativity, and that's how it ties them together. So the table that he was doing was making a river table out of concrete and Lego.
Oh, I did see the thumbnail for that, and I thought, damn it, he beat me, because I spoke when we were talking about the river tables about, I have this idea, but I haven't been able to get to it. Yep. And mine was, instead of resin, using cement and having it like half and half. So
that's
half
right.
the table would be wood and the other half would be cement. But he kind of beat me to the punch.
So he made a very angular river out of Lego blocks. He then put that upside down in a mold. He then poured in place the concrete, lifted it up, and there on the concrete, or running through the concrete, was this Lego river. And
it's a good idea.
So cool.
Especially considering cement is pretty stable and doesn't move, and Lego won't move, unlike wood, which is going to expand and kind of separate over time. I like it. I haven't watched the video yet, but I have it in my watch later icon list.
Yeah, no, so it's very cool. Very cool idea. The video is in his typical style. It's amazing. The one thing that I love with his videos is he tells the story around it, and he does it really, really well. I don't know if it's just his the content of the way he story tells, or his vocal dynamics, but it's just so engaging. So engaging for such a simple, like, his videos are nothing different. They're
very
just
simple pace.
Yeah, just executed so well.
I will say that with him, every video he puts out is always like phenomenal production quality. But sometimes I find, and probably just because I'm, one of these millennials that like to click through things really quickly, but I do find that it can be sped up in certain aspects of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's because I've, like, my kind of viewing styles changed, because I remember, like, earlier on when he was making videos, I would sit there and watch the entire thing. So I think it's probably me more than anything. But I love his stuff, except for when people accuse me of stealing his designs when it's my design from 5 years before he did his first design. And he asked me if he can use it.
Talking about that. So I just, this week, just out of the blue, I put out a video a couple months ago of when my workshop flooded. I tried to fix the problem by running a drainage pipe out in my bottom of a yard. For some reason, YouTube, the algorithms picked this up, and it's just gone gangbusters, this video. I think it's because I added tags to it. So if you're a YouTuber looking to adding tags onto your videos.
Have you not been using tags?
Sorry. Hashtags. I added hashtags.
Okay. No, Robin. So
I added hashtags to it, and ever since then, it's done really well. So
is that in the tags section? So instead of like tagging it as making a bar, you go hashtag make
at the bottom of the description. And I don't know if it has to be at the bottom, but what most people do is on the last line of the description, hashtag whatever space, hashtag whatever,
right?
And then you'll see it straight away. It comes up just above the title of the video. It's got the hashtag there.
I had no idea about that.
Now, presumably that means you can search on hashtags, which I don't think people would be doing. But I think more than that, if you get onto the trending page, above the title will say number whatever on trending. So then they introduced this hashtag thing, and people would see hashtag, but and I think subconsciously that makes you look at the video and go, oh, this is a popular video, and that's why it's working. That's my interpretation of it. I don't know if that's necessarily correct. Anyway,
that's a good heads up. I didn't even know you could do that. Nice.
Yeah, it's only been out for a couple months, I think.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's still fairly new. Jump on the bandwagon, and as one video said, get your hashtag periodic furniture studio in there before someone else does.
I'm onto it.
So anyway, so this video has just suddenly done well out of the blue. I've just had the worst people just crawl out of the gutters and comment on my video. It's one of those videos where I haven't necessarily done it the way most people would. And because it's building, and building is all around code, a lot of people are saying it's wrong.
Yeah. But
just mean people. Every morning I just wake up to cancel. I'm pretty sure I'm not any of those words. No, I wouldn't like you to do that to my mother. Like, just awful.
Jesus.
Yeah,
people are just disgusting online.
It's terrible. So this Sunday gone by, I did my that half marathon, which I'll just quickly sneak in that I did well and I completed it, and I'm totally stoked that I did it. So, and before the run, I got this message, and I was just like, just ignore it. Hold on, Jamie, I'm coming in a couple minutes. Tap. Now I'm going for a run, and I left in such a foul mood, which I was so annoyed about. Because it's just a stupid comment, just ate away at me. I think people forget how those comments actually get to you.
Oh, people don't realize that the person on the receiving end of your keyboard warrior comment is a person with feelings. Like,
yeah,
that's wrong, isn't it?
Anyway, I think I've had pretty good luck. I know some people just get like personal filth where that's just awful. You know, these people are just saying that I'm a moron for what I've done. That's fine, but they're not attacking, my personal.
Most of my hateful or hurtful comments I can always laugh at, because they're just, stupid people, and I can put that to it. But there is always this one comment which comes up about and I will try not to swear because it always swears, but it's like, oh, you bloody kangaroo expletive, fucking expletive, you don't know what you're doing, bloody go have another. Like, really?
That's the worst.
I read it and I'm like, this is taking creativity to come up with this sort of statement, so I applaud you for that effort, but delete.
Yeah, someone put effort into that. Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, well, that's pretty much the show. I just want to make the announcement again in case anyone didn't catch the beginning. We are bringing the Shop Stool podcast season 1 to an end. We're going to do a show not next week, the week after, and that'll be the final show. And then we're going to take a couple month break, and then we'll be back. So yeah, not next week, the week after that's going to be the final show. We really hope to see everyone there. I'm not quite sure what we're going to talk about, but I think we might do a revision of what we've talked about over the last 38 episodes.
Yeah, and probably find out what Joey's been up to.
Yeah, so Joey's really struggling with this time slot, so hopefully we'll be able to get him in. If not, we'll do our best. We might even pre-record it or something.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll get him in for the last one. Cool. All right, everyone. Well, thanks to everyone in the chat. I hope you enjoyed the show. John, anything you want to add before we leave?
No, just keep on making stuff.
Keep on making. Cool. All right, everyone. Thanks again, and we'll see you again not next Tuesday after that at 7 p.m.
Bye.